Hello, thank you for visiting the Management Channel. We're going to talk about project management in two parts. This first part is all about leading a project team. The second part is actually doing project management. So, the thing you want to do is align some key players for your project. For success with a new project oriented team, what do you need to know? Well, you need to recognize the people who define and influence your work environment. You need to understand their unique roles, know how to work effectively with them to create a successful project. And when you contact people who will support the project, what four things should you do? First, inform them that your project has been approved and when the work will actually start. Confirm that they're still able to be there and support the project. 3, explain what you'll do to develop the project team and start the actual project work. And reconfirm work you expect them to perform, schedule and deadlines that are expected, the amount of time you expect them to spend on the project. What four elements should you make sure your team understands? The goals. What does a team have to do, and what members have to do what? Each member's specialty, position, authority, and their particular assignments. Processes, techniques that members will use to perform their tasks, and relationships, attitudes and behavior of members towards each other. You want it to be a peaceful and open environment where everyone is free to speak. So, setting your project in motion, you need to first review approved project plan with all members, bring new members up to speed if you're adding any. Develop team and individual goals, clarify the expectations, and of course define what the benefit is to the team and the organization. Specify what the team member roles are, primary and secondary. Define the team's operating processes, and finally encourage member relationships, and you are there to resolve conflicts. At a minimum, you should develop procedures for communication, all project-related information in writing and any personal interactions, decision-making, deciding alternative approaches and actions, guidelines for making a choice, how to gain consensus, and so forth, conflict resolution, resolving any differences of opinion that happen between members, and in defining your team's operating process, you want to remember 4 stages of team development. Remember your guide. It was forming, storming, norming, and performing. And sometimes you may have to revisit a previous step. You could be in the performing but go backwards to storming. It happens. You need to establish some kind of structure. So let's start off with the functional structure. Functional structure brings together people who perform similar tasks or use the same kinds of skills and knowledge in their functional groups. Some of the advantages are you have a reservoir of skill and knowledge in their particular area of expertise. You should have well-established communication processes and decision-making procedures so as to provide timely and consistent support for the project, and provide people with a focused and supportive job environment. The disadvantages are it hampers effective collaboration among different functional groups. The main interest is to perform tasks in their group's specialty area rather than to achieve goals and results that may involve and affect other groups in the organization. And you may have difficulty in getting buy-in and support for this project from other functional groups that must support or that might be affected. Projectized structure, that's a tough word. Groups gather together, all personnel working on a particular project. The advantages are all members of a project team report directly to the project manager. Members can more easily develop a shared sense of identity, resulting in stronger commitment to one another and to the success of the overall team. Everyone on the team shares the processes for performing project work, communication, conflict resolution, and, importantly, decision-making. But, like everything else, there are disadvantages. 1, it's a higher personnel cost. There's reduced technical interchange between projects. There's reduced career continuity, opportunities, and sense of job security. And now let's look at the matrix structure. This combines elements of both the functional and the projectized structures to facilitate the responsive and effective participation of people from different parts of the organization that need their specialized expertise. Advantages of this system: teams can assemble rapidly. Specialized expertise can be available for several different projects. And getting buy-in from team members' functional units is easier than with functional or projectized structure. And again, always disadvantages. Team members working on multiple projects respond to 2 or more managers at once. That's tough. Team members may not be familiar with one another's styles and knowledge. And the members may focus more on their individual assignments and less on the project and the project goals. So getting the information you need to determine skills and knowledge each activity requires. You need to determine who is the best person for that task, and then decide which skills and knowledge each project team member should possess, and then create a skills matrix. The steps for preparing a skill matrix are: you discuss with each team member his or her skills, their knowledge, and the related interest to the project tasks. You want to determine each person's level of interest in working on the project tasks, and consult with team members' functional manager to determine their opinion of the member's skills, knowledge, and interest in the project. What are the steps for preparing a skill matrix? Number 4, check to see whether any areas of your organization have already prepared a skills matrix. Maybe you don't have to do this step. Incorporate all the information you gather in a skills matrix and review with each team member to ensure that the information you have is accurate. What is a human resources matrix? This one depicts people assigned to each project activity and the work effort each person will contribute to each assignment. There are 3 types of information you need: their skills and knowledge, the position name or title, and the name of the person, obviously. Planning your initial allocations. Begin planning your workload by developing what? Well, start with a human resources matrix. Then create a personal loading graph or chart. So what is a personal loading chart? It's a bar graph that depicts the level of work effort you'll spend each day, week, or month on an activity. So, working successfully within a matrix, what 5 things can you do to reinforce a team identity? You can clarify the team vision and working relationships. You can define the team procedures. Clarify each person's authority. Be aware of and attend your team's functioning and meetings. Reinforce the overall project goals and the dependence of team members on one another. Very important. They all have to understand that it's all of us contributing for the overall good. So, now we have to look at thinking about heading off some common problems. What 4 things can you do to head off any common problems? Plan in sufficient detail. Can't stress that enough. Plan, plan, plan. Plan for the what if. What if this happens scenarios. Identify and address any conflicts promptly. Don't let them linger. Encourage open communication among your members, especially regarding any problems and frustrations they feel. Everybody should be able to speak up and have what they got on their mind said in the group. And encourage upper management to establish an oversight committee to monitor the project performance and to address any resource or other conflicts. Your project communications management plan. What is that? Well, it's a document that specifies all project communications generated throughout the project, who the target audience is, their information content, and the frequency. It should include the target audience, any information needs you have, any information sharing activity you plan, what is the content, how often or what is the frequency, and what data are you going to collect. Maintaining that project control with our 4 activities that are performed throughout the project. 1. Reconfirm the plan. At the beginning of each performance period, reaffirm everybody's responsibilities and commitments. Assess performance. Dates, milestones were reached, dates started and ended activities, the number of hours, the amount of non-personnel resources used, and expenditures made for each activity. Then, take corrective action. Take steps to bring performance back to the plan or revise the plan to reflect any new expectations. And, really important, keep everybody informed. Share their achievements, their problems, and future plans with the project audience. You should have a tracking system. And so, what 3 areas of performance should you be tracking and monitoring? Schedule achievement. How well you are doing against meeting the expected established dates. Personnel resource use. The levels of effort people are spending on different assignments. And, really important, financial expenditures. Funds you're spending for these project resources. Something very useful for project managers is the project management info systems. They pretty much have 3 main parts. The inputs, the data that describes selected aspects of the project's performance. The processes, or the analysis of the data comparing actual performance to planned performance. And the outputs, reports that present the results of the analysis. Monitoring the schedule performance, define the schedule data to collect. What is the start and end date for each activity? And what are the dates when the milestones are actually achieved? Analyze schedule performance, the activity or milestone name, person responsible for ensuring activity completion. Of course, what dates should they start and end? And add any relevant comments about the activity. Continuing on monitoring the schedule performance, you want to collect schedule performance data. Is activity on the critical path? We're going to find out what the critical path is in the next section. Is activity high risk? What problems were encountered with this activity? And are we approaching the activity's planned completion date? Next, choose a vehicle for schedule tracking system. There are manual tracking systems like day planners, calendars, handwritten project logs. You could use a simple Gantt chart, or you could use a computer-based tracking system like project management software, database software, or a spreadsheet. But use one that can be shared with the group. Monitoring the work effort. You want to monitor the total hours budgeted versus the total hours spent. The hours per person budgeted versus the hours used per person. And then the difference between the hours budgeted versus the hours actually used. Accurate collection of word effort data, time cards. You want written time logs. Signature of person, verifying the time reported is accurate. And an approval signature of a supervisor verifying the accuracy. Improving accuracy of work effort data. Encourage accuracy of actual hours spent rather than just reporting 40 hours. If they spent 38, that's what you want to know. Include categories of direct, administrative, and so forth. Encourage each one to fill out their own timesheet. Collect these timesheets weekly or some other kind of regular basis. And again, choose a vehicle for work effort data. Manually with handwritten time logs. Computer-based tracking system like time clock or time card. Or a computer insert system, spreadsheet. Monitoring the monetary expenditures. Make a rough estimate of the item's cost and project budget. Submit a written approved request for item to procurement department or purchasing. Purchasing a vendor and submit purchase order. The vendor agrees to provide the items requested. Items are received and accepted. Purchasing receives an invoice for that service. Purchasing then pays them. And next, you want to analyze your projected budget versus your actual cost and note the difference, plus or minus, to the proposed project budget. Now let's take a look at possible cause of delays. Once you determine a problem exists, you first have to determine why. What caused that delay, variance, or problem? The reasons could be people spent less time on the item than they agreed to. The activity requires more time than what was estimated. Maybe the activity requires more steps than what was identified. People working on this project may have less experience than what was anticipated. People might be doing more than required, delaying a project. Could be weather conditions, a labor strike, a material shortage. You never know. Things happen. Despite good planning, an activity may require more than what you thought. A customer might request a change, or maybe a new technology evolves. The change usually always comes at a cost, either with time or money or both. You should have contingency plans already set in motion on how to deal with these changes and how to respond. What 3 things are given as guidelines for helping you smoothly incorporate changes into your project? Don't use the possibility of changes as an excuse for not being thorough in your original planning. Remember that change always has a cost. Determine the cost ahead of time so you can plan and minimize where possible. And assess the effect of change on all aspects of your project. A simple change could affect multiple stages or multiple items in many ways. And then we have what's called scope creep. What is scope creep? It's the gradual expansion of project work without formal consideration and acceptance of these changes, or without thinking of their associated costs and effects. What could cause it? Well, a lack of clarity and detail in the original description of the project scope, the objectives, or work to be done. There might be a willingness to modify a project without formal review and approval. There might be a willingness to let people who don't do the work associated with the changes decide whether to make the changes. And it could be the feeling that you feel like you should never say no to a client. And sometimes you have to. Personal pride sometimes that encourages you to believe that you can do anything. That ego sometimes can be a problem. What can you do to help control it? Well, include detailed descriptions of all objectives in the plan. Always assess the effect of requested changes on the product, on the schedules, and on the resources. Share your true feelings about whether you can implement this requested change. Don't feel like you can't say no or it can't be done. And develop an open and honest relationship with your clients, so they're going to be a little more receptive when you raise issues that might be associated with the change requests. You might also be looking at resolving potential resource overloads. You will be constantly planning, replanning, shifting resources, and changing allocations. That's just part of project management. So you want to allocate your time unevenly over the duration of one or more activities. Why? Instead of spending the same number of hours on an activity each week, plan to spend more hours some weeks than others. It depends on how important the issue or the task is. Take advantage of any slack time that may exist in your assigned activities. What is slack time again? Remember, it's the maximum time that you could delay an activity without delaying the earliest date by which you can finish and complete the project. Post-project evaluation. What 4 areas should be covered in this? Review the experience you gained from the project. Recognize the people for all their achievements. Be sure you congratulate them. Plan to ensure good practices are repeated on all future projects. And plan to head off any problems you encountered in this project on the future projects. To wrap up our first section on project management, I hope that you'll take the time to look at part 2, which gets into the actual mechanics of project management. Thank you and have a good day.